It's like thou shalt not covet that comes up in the law later on. You're driving down the fancy neighborhood. It's like, man, what does that guy do for a living? And his house is this palatial mansion, and everything else. You're like, what's going on? So they're jealous. They're envious. You got to remember, this is a world that culturally, economically, we have no clue what it was like. They are scratching a living literally out of the desert. Yeah. There's no super Walmarts. There's no internet, Amazon.com. Somebody the other day was telling me, like, you got to try Temu. I can get all this and stuff for just dirt cheap. And so I'm like, it's like the dollar store version of like Amazon. So if you think Amazon's a good deal, try Temu. They have no Temu, they have no Amazon, there's no Walmart superstores, there's no Myers, there's no Kroger's, there's no dollar stores, there's no nothing. We're like, we work hard, but we have leisure time. There is no leisure time. You work sun up to sundown. When your head hits the pillow, it's congratulations, take the rest of the night off. That's
your child cries.
Yeah, right, in the middle of the night. Right. So it is a tough place. And here you have this guy who, why is everything go his way? All the flocks never miscarry. Gold is flowing, silver is flowing, the flocks are flowing, the servants are multiplying. It's just he's the magic man, right? And we're going to find out here that Abimelech is hearing these reports from his servants. They're all jealous. And he's even going to come and he's going to make a treaty here with Isaac here in a moment, because he's like, well, we see that the Lord has blessed you. Which is a very nice way of saying you've got everything, So, all right. So anyways, but I want you to notice here, they're stopping up the wells because Abraham has died, and they're jealous.
Oh.
And they want him to get out of here. It's almost like he's got too much of a good thing, and everybody's so mad. Just having him around makes everybody angry because life is so perfect for this guy. He's the magic man, right? So what are we going to do? We're going to frustrate him. We're going to fill up his wells so his flocks can't drink. And we're going to keep driving him away, right?
Matter of fact, that makes you thirsty digging wells, too.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I mean, I can think about that. I need water all the time.
Without a well driller. By hand.
Yes.
Right, yeah.
How long are their shovels?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
how many do they break?
If you want to think about how much work our ancestors did, read de Tocqueville, the French historian about the United States and like this part of the country. It was all forest, right?
Cut all the trees.
And so they had to clear all these thousands of acres of farm ground. That was all oaks and hickories and elms and everything. People were out there sawing. There was no chainsaws. Hacking and sawing thousands and tens of thousands and hundreds and millions of acres just to plant corn and soybeans.
And then they had to drag the roots out. I cut Mom's bush out front, and it was huge, like the size bigger than this table group here.
Yeah.
And they're just two small roots like that. And I can't get those out of the ground.
Yeah. That's why men only live to be 56 years old. I'm 55 now. I'd be at the end of my lifespan 100 years ago, because they were literally working themselves to death, And that was like 56 was like you did pretty well for yourself. That means there was a lot of people dropping over in their 30s and 40s, right?
Yeah.
It was a hard life, right? So now they're just mad. They're like, get out of here, go away from us. You're too prosperous. You've got too much God. You've got too much everything. Get out of our face, right? So notice here, they stop up the first well, verse 20, and he names it Isaac. Strife is the translation. Then verse 21, Sitnah, which means hatred. These people really hate me. Well, okay, fine. I'll keep moving away. Then he gets to Rehoboth, not Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, where our former president vacations. No. It means broad place or room. They've stopped bothering him. And then, of course, there's all this discussion about going up. He's headed up to the hill country. He's going up, right? And then, of course, finally he lands in verse 23 in Beersheba, which is a well that his father dug earlier, which becomes a village, which becomes, quite frankly, a very large city now in that neck of the woods. And he's reminded to rename it what his father named it, which is Beersheba, the well of oath, right? And that harkens us back to Genesis chapter 21, which we previously covered, which was that treaty with Abimelech, in which, in order, just so that everyone knew publicly they did this, I dug this well, but just to make sure that you agree with me that I hear 7 ewe lambs, and Abimelech's like, okay, all right, this is Abraham's well, but I will take the 7 lambs, right? In exchange, and he calls it the well of oath, or the well of the 7 lambs, right? Which is symbolic, of course, Christologically, even in the New Testament, right? All right, so let's close this out. Someone do 24:25. We got 20 minutes left. 24:25.
And the Lord appeared to him the same night and said, I am the God of Abraham, your father. Fear not, for I am with you and will bless you and multiply your offspring for my servant Abraham's sake. So he built an altar there and called upon the name of the Lord and pitched his tent there, and there Isaac's servants dug a well.
Yeah, here we go. You'll see a pattern in the rest of Genesis here. Got to have the water in the desert. All right, so he comes to him once again, the second time now that Moses mentions. And Yahweh, the I am. And now remember, this is pre-Genesis chapter. The reason why... remember, when we get to Exodus chapter 3 and the bush is burning, and he says, take off thy sandals, for the place where you stand is holy ground. And he says, what is your name? He says, Yahweh, I am. Moses then writes this history later. They have all this from their oral history passed down perfectly from generation to generation. I mean, when you... ancient cultures were very disciplined about this. Like, when you tell me something now, like, I might forget 5 minutes later. Mm-hmm. But we have the internet to remind us. We have phone alarms. We have word processing abilities. We can write stuff in a number of ways to help us remember. They have oral tradition largely, especially in the nomadic parts. So they would tell these stories over and over and over, and the fathers would make sure that the children knew them perfectly, because these were their stories. This was their people. This was their blood. These were their generations, right? And so by the time you get from, although it seems like it's a long time, but it is, according to our reckoning, by the time you get 2200 Abraham to 1500s, 700 years later to Moses, they all know these stories. They're literally, because in Goshen, in Exodus chapter 3, 400 years later, after they had went down to Egypt and then stayed there longer than they were expecting, at this point, the Lord has prospered them not only 100-fold, but there's millions of them, right? I think 2 million men plus women and children.
Right.
And of course, the Egyptians are fair, but they all know these stories. They all know and they can keep each other in check because they're like, wait a second, you're not telling that story right. And then they are all conferring with one another. And so they tell these stories over and over again. So Yahweh, I am, calls to Isaac, and he reminds him, I am the Elohim of Abraham.
So that's the word used there.
Yes, Yahweh and Elohim once again. Yahweh calls, I am the Elohim of Abraham. So Yahweh is God, God specifically of your father Abraham. And for Abraham's sake, I'm going to do all these things for you. The same things that I promised to your father, I am promising them to you. Right? These promises are for you. It sounds very Lutheran, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. For you. Our favorite phrase. So Abraham, of course, is the father of all the faithful. Hebrews chapter 12. And then notice here, he builds an altar and he digs a well. Right? So like, hey, I just got a vision. Let's just hang out here for a little while. Build an altar, dig a well.
I like the way it says he built the altar, then he dug a well.
Now, this altar...
First things first.
That's right.
They're often stones of remembrance. Later on, they're going to become sacrificial altars. But whenever there's a vision given, you'll often see the patriarchs build an altar, dig a well. Build an altar, especially build the altar for sure. And we're going to see Jacob does that too. Like the whole Jacob's ladder thing, what does he do? He builds an altar, right? And so, interestingly, those altars stay up. And when they're 400 years in Egypt and they come back into the land, Moses is like, oh, there's Rehoboth. There's this altar. There's the altar for Jacob's. And they're like, wow, this is what the stories have been. Wow, this happened right here.
Well, it's been 400 years.
Yeah.
None of them had seen it.
Yeah. They've only heard the
It's
stories.
like going back to Grandma's house.
Yes.
400 years later.
Well, it's like the same thing
Well, it is. You remember it.
when you talk to somebody who's like been to the Holy Land, they come back a bit in awe. They're like, oh my gosh, I was in the exact same spot where Jesus and the apostles were. Oh my gosh, I was in the exact same spot where King David was, or Solomon was, or Ruth was, or you name it. So
Humbling, very humbling.
Yes, indeed. But it fits you into the narrative of God's salvation. It realizes that you're a part of the story too, although a bit further down the line. Thousands of years,
Which is
right?
good. We don't have to build an altar and dig a well.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right,
Thank you, Lord. We are blessed.
Yeah, imagine if you moved, you just gotten comfy, and he's like, "Oh, time to move the flocks." And you're like, "We're gonna have to dig another well." Very upset. All right, let's close up verse 26 through 35. 26 through 35.
When Abimelech went to him from Gerar with Ahuzah, his advisor, and Phicol, the commander of his army, Isaac said to them, "Why have you come to me, seeing that you hate me and have sent me away from you?" They said, "We see plainly that the Lord has been with you." So we said, "Let there be a sworn pact between us, between you and us, and let us make a covenant with you, that you will do us no harm, just as we have not touched you and have done to you nothing but good, and have sent you away in peace. You are now the blessed of the Lord." That might be interesting to read.
Mm-hmm.
So he made them a feast, and they ate and drank. In the morning they rose early and exchanged oaths. How far am I going? 35.
35, yeah.
And Isaac sent them on their way, and they departed from him in peace. That same day Isaac's servants came and told him about the well that they had dug, and said to him, "We have found water." He called it Shibah. Therefore the name of the city is Beersheba to this day.
Yep.
When Esau was 40 years old, he took Judith, the daughter of Beeri the Hittite, to be his wife, and Basemath, the daughter of Elon the Hittite, and they made life bitter for Isaac and Rebekah.
Very good. All right.
So he had two wives.
Yes. Yeah, that's an often polygamy is a big theme in the
Couldn't
in
decide
Genesis.
which ones, took them both. That's a man for you.
Well, you have more sons that help
Yeah,
them
that's
dig
true.
wells.
That's right.
So Sheba, verse 33, is a shortened version of Beersheba, right? So often you'll see, whenever you see Sheba pop up with an I, Shibah, that is talking about the city of Beersheba, or the well that Abraham dug, the well of Os, right? Blessed of the Lord, verse 29, that's the blessed of Yahweh. And indeed, because when you carry the Zerah, you get the 100-fold, right? And of course, all the neighbors have noticed, as you can see, and they are jealous. And they see that
scared.
they see, yes, they're frightened because they've heard the stories of previous miracles and also curses and plagues. And even Abimelech and his household, when Abraham earlier pulled one of those switcheroos, and before Abimelech ever laid a hand on him, the household was cursed, and they all knew it. And they're like, "What's going on here?" And they were digging around. They're like, "Oh, whoever that guy's God is gotten us. Now pray for us. And here's a bunch of silver, and here's a bunch of livestock. Get out of here, right? And don't come back. God bless you.
Well, in that way,
don't hurt us."
God did bless him too.
Yeah. So they're it's fear and wonder. It's the whole nine thing wrapped in together. He's the blessed of Yahweh, indeed, right? So there's this whole thing where initially they're like, go away, and then they're like, come back, and he's like, no, I'm good out here. And they're like, well, at least then let's do a non-aggression pact, right? We haven't touched you, you don't touch us, and Isaac's like, okay, yeah, cool, dude. Just relax.
And they did nothing but good to them, sent them away.
They did. They did good to. Then
they filled up their wells with dirt.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hey, this is great, man.
Yes. So it's a little. There's tension.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they're also afraid at the same time.
So Esau was really not happy with his brother.
Oh, well, that's going to come later.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to actually get into that.
No, that's right. Yeah.
We're going to get into that, the specifics of that later on.
Well, why?
So let me just finish the handout. They're making peace with the blessed of Yahweh, and but notice here Esau now comes back into the story. Moses brings him back in very abruptly because Esau and Jacob are now going to take center stage in this struggle, the next part of the struggle, and that's where the story is going to evolve. And so Esau sins again, but in a different way, in that he takes wives for himself from the Hittites. The Hittites are not Hebrews.
Right.
They don't have Yahweh as their God. And notice here, Moses says, and they made life bitter for Isaac and Rebekah. And we're going to see
Turnaround is fair play.
Rebekah becomes very, as they say, verklempt. Very vexed is perhaps Shakespeare's word. Vexed by these young ladies.
So that means she was really
not happy.
Okay.
She is not happy. These women with their false gods and their practices that are not their customs, and they're probably putting it in her face because they're younger than her, and there's a bit of that. Not that stuff ever goes on amongst the ladies, right? A little bit of female competition, right?
Cat fights are really.
I got lost here somewhere. Abraham had Isaac. Isaac had Jacob and Esau. They mentioned Esau. What happened to Jacob?
Well, Jacob's still around. It just the story had pivoted to some consequential events in regard to Isaac primarily. Isaac is kind of at that point the focal point of the story, but now Moses is going to switch back to, it becomes less eventful. Isaac's big part in the story here now becomes in regards to his two sons and the two nations that are in conflict with one another. So they remember Rebekah thought she was going to die at one point because these boys were fighting within her, even within the womb. And the Lord gives her the prophecy that, don't worry, you're not going to die, but you have within your womb two nations. And she's like, oh, great. This is going to be fun.
This is just starting.
And it is just starting. We're going to literally have decades of strife, and there's going to be fear. There's going to be threats, even murderous threats. There's going to be deceiving of one another, and Jacob, as we'll get into here in the later chapters, Jacob thinks he's the master of trickery, but there is one man who can out-trick him all day long, and that man is named Laban, and we're going to get into Laban.
Yeah.
Don't mess with Laban. He is the master of deception. If he was alive today, he'd probably be a spy. He's very good at what he does. So
Jacob gets blessed tenfold.
Yeah. So the two nations prophecy is going to come to fruition, and Esau's earlier sins are going to come back to haunt him, and we'll get to that. So I'm hoping that now today, let's do some logistics here. Go ahead and buy internet. Go ahead and hit the silver button. Let's do some logistics.